My father always tells me this, that it's always the best idea to get as much as education as you can. So if you're thinking whether or not to get that master's degree, just go and get it. I want to emphasize this again because the more I talk to people, the more I realize this, that your EQ will take you places and your IQ means nothing. I was like, oh, this is a good opportunity for me to prove my worth to the team. Because I was told that as long as your need is not created in the team, they will not want you back. When you feel that you don't have time for uh, life, the life aspect of work life, then you should especially make time for life. Try to be the dumbest person in the group in any like corporate setting. Be the dumbest person in the group because you will learn so much when you are hanging out with these geniuses.
Welcome to another episode of IEEE Pune Sections Beyond Conversation. Today, we are honored to explore the incredible journey of Mrunmayee Bide, currently pursuing her master's at Purdue University and interning at Tesla. Join us as we uncover her insights and experiences in the world of industrial engineering. Without further ado, let's welcome Mrunmayee to the show. Hello, Mrunmayee. Welcome to our Beyond Conversation podcast. We are very thank you that you are here right now and honored. So, for our listeners, could you please introduce yourself, like what you do or what your work is, who you are?
Okay, so I'm Ranmai. I'm from Pune. I'm a production engineer from COEP, and currently I'm pursuing a master's degree in industrial engineering at Purdue University in Indiana, USA. And as a part of that master's program, I'm doing a co-op, which is a 2-semester internship at Tesla. And yeah, that's pretty much about me. And I like to dance and paint.
Yeah, okay. So, let's delve into the question straight. So, could you walk us through some key moments or experiences during your time at COEP that, shaped your career right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think if I have to be honest, for the first 1 year at COEP, I was just that kid who was happy to be a part of such a big institution. Like, I wasn't really thinking of my career or the future at that point. But I would say that one key moment or one key aspect of my journey at COEP was definitely making the right kind of friends who propelled me into the direction of, thinking about my career or thinking about what is it that I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And I think another key moment I would say was the lockdown. Because that is when I was my laziest self. I did not study properly at all. And I think that taught me the importance of being busy constantly and putting your brain to work at all times. So, in a very weird way, COEP taught me to not ever be lazy, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really good answer. Yes, because lockdown period was pretty much tough time for everybody, to be honest. Because I feel like I started my undergraduate in that time because 2021, so it was pretty much tough. So moving on, can you share any specific aspects of your production engineering, that attracted you towards the masters? Because obviously you first did a job and then you went to masters, right?
Right.
So would you like to share something about it?
Oh, yeah. So I think production engineering was a kind of degree which made me more of a generalist than a specialist than anything or at anything. Because I gained interest in supply chain when I was studying production engineering because of the electives I took, and it gave me an idea that eventually in life I would like to pursue a job which gives me an idea of the whole picture of what the company is doing or what kind of a role am I playing in the whole company. It helps me understand that, and I think that's why I got into a company which did supply chain consulting, because again it helped me understand the bigger picture. And I'm very, for the lack of a better word, scared of coding. So I don't like anything that I can't see and touch, anything that is intangible. And supply chain is so tangible, like you can literally see every component of whatever you're dealing with. So that is what I like the most about production engineering and now industrial, because it's very real and you can see the effects that you're creating on a day-to-day basis. Like if I have to give an example out of my internship right now, if I don't plan for parts well, then there are customers waiting at the service centers for that part. So it's very
Oh,
simple to understand, and
yeah.
it's very like logical. So I think that's when I decided that I wanted to do something that helps me remain logical.
So, transitioning to the next question, which is obviously a hot topic. You are doing masters at one of the great university of the US, Purdue University, because it is very competitive to get into that. So, like, what beyond academic qualifications, what are the other factors do you believe, played a role in your acceptance into that university?
Hmm. So that's the thing about these American universities. They never disclose their like list of criteria. No one ever knows what they look at. So, but I like to believe that I think a well-written SOP uh, is definitely important. I referred to this book called Admitted by Saundarya Balsubramani. It's a very good book, and I used that as a guide to write my SOP, wherein she talks about how your SOP should be like a story of your whole life and your experiences that have propelled you into this direction of pursuing this master's degree, and how you are perfect for this course that you want to apply to, instead of just focusing on your academic achievements. And another thing I would say is definitely your letters of recommendation that you get from your university professors and maybe your managers at your internships. So, a good trick is to start, if you want to do a master's, you should definitely start building that kind of a rapport with your professors and your managers so that you can ask them for those letters of recommendations, because I think they play a big role. And another thing is, your resume, it should be clean, well drafted. Uh, you should do a lot of research on what a good resume looks like and work on your resume, because those, I think, are the three important documents that you basically submit to the university apart from your transcripts. So, yeah, those three things. And just in general, I would say maintaining a sense of sincerity throughout your application, just being yourself and so stating
Yeah,
the real reasons for
authenticity in
why.
the application
Yeah,
process. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So not trying to be some ideal student which an university want, because I've seen with these schools, they often look for diversity more than idealism. They don't care if you're not perfect, they just want to see that spark in you. So you should
Yeah.
really try to portray that.
And what do you think is the ideal time to, prepare for GRE if someone wants to, go to the masters directly after the undergraduate years?
You're asking how many months you should be
Yeah,
preparing for GRE?
yeah.
Oh, yeah. So I think I prepared for about 3 months, which is what they say is ideal. So I did a coaching class for GRE, which I didn't find to be useful because, again, it was COVID, it was online. I don't think I need much attention. So I didn't find that class to be useful. But then I just decided to start studying on my own. I think the best way to do that is to book your GRE date, because until you book your date,
Yeah.
you are not going to study. So I booked my date, and then I booked it 3 months in future, and I studied for those 3 months. So that timeline is, I think, ideal for
Yeah.
preparing for GRE because it's not a very tough exam.
Yeah. So, again, like, how has the experience of, studying at Purdue University, like, differed from your expectations? And, like, what adjustments, you had to make to, thrive in that environment itself?
Yeah. Oh, I think one thing I was definitely not prepared for was the way uh, they test you at Purdue. So, as an Indian student, you are very used to being exactly told what you need to study and what will be on the paper. And it like, for a course I took, it was called Digital Transformation in Industrial Business. So we only did like case studies throughout the course. We didn't refer to any book or anything. Our professor used to send us a case study and we used to discuss the case study the next morning. And the way they took our exam was they just told us that you have to research on a case study and present that for 1 hour, and that will be it. That is the only thing they graded us on. So as someone who's so used to being given directions, I got very lost at this freedom. So I think I was definitely not prepared for taking exams like this. But it's a good way to take exams, I think, because it makes you think, and
Yeah.
it gives you that sense of independent thinking, which I think sometimes, I don't want to generalize, but as Indian students, we tend to lack that independent thinking because we are very focused on trying to get marks and trying to please the teacher. So we don't focus on what we actually thought of the subject or the topic. So yeah,
Yeah.
that was one adjustment that I had to make. And the other adjustment I had to make was learning to live without family, I think, which I had
Yeah,
never done.
it's also tough because we have been in this comfort zone for so long period, and then we just transition to going to another country itself. So it's pretty sure it was tough. So
Yeah.
like, can you share any like significant projects or any research things that you have undertaken during your master's program that have influenced your understanding of industrial engineering?
Actually, I just came to Purdue in the August of 2023, and then in Jan I got this internship. So technically, and now I'm not doing any courses with my internship. So technically, I was only at Purdue for like one semester, 4 months. So I didn't get a chance to do any project as such, but I did take two course. I took 4 courses, but out of which I think 2 of them really shaped a lot of my internship knowledge, I would say. One was quality control, and I liked it for the way it was taught. The professor was amazing, really well read man. It also like opens a lot of avenues for your career in the direction of quality control. So that was one course that I really liked. And another one, the one that I talked about, digital transformation in industrial business. I like that course because that professor showed us industrial business from a very different angle. Because until this point, I had only looked at business from a point of view of an employee, but he showed us business from a point of view of the like owner of the business. Like when you are at this juncture, what kind of decisions would you take? He would make us draw decision trees and take our own financial risk decisions. So I think those two courses were my best part at Purdue so far, but I'm hoping when I go back I can also do some projects.
Yeah, that's great. So, like, how did you land your internship at Tesla? Like, it's just such a big deal because how did you tailor your application and the approach to stand out among so many competitive people right now, and even in this job market? So,
Oh yeah, I know it's a tough job market right now. And if I have to be completely honest, I did not tailor my application specific to Tesla. I would have just been happy to get an internship anywhere at this point because of the market conditions. So I just basically tailored my resume in a way that it shows my experience and expertise in supply chain, because that's where I eventually want to be. So I uh, designed my resume for to glorify that aspect of my experiences in academia, and then I just made like a bunch of applications and waited for luck to play its part, because I feel like this needs to be said. You can do everything right, and sometimes it still won't happen for you because luck definitely plays a part. So it's okay. I mean, you don't have to put all your eggs in one basket of Tesla or any company. I think you will get what you are meant to get, and you should be happy with that. But yeah, I want to say one thing, which is in India we are taught to be very like humble. Don't brag too much about your achievements, or don't show off. But that's not the case here, because they want you to show off on your resume even if you did one project that in BTech that you think is insignificant, you did it as a like a 1 month project, BTech project, whatever, you should definitely put it on your resume and you should glorify it, because that is what these people are looking for. They will literally have softwares which pick up these keywords, or that did a project in, I don't know, cost management or whatever. So don't be afraid to boast about yourself, because that's what they want.
Yeah, it's such a great answer because, to be honest, in midst of this crisis right now, even in India, it is very tough to even secure any internship at this point.
Yeah.
So moving on, can you share any memorable or challenging moments from your internship? Because I feel like you have done 4 months, right? You are in this internship for 4 months now. So like, how did you navigate them?
Oh, in Tesla?
Yeah.
Oh, so basically, what my job is, we all have parts that we have to manage, like actual parts of the car that we are in charge of making sure that they're present at the service centers where the Tesla
Yeah.
cars come for repair. So everyone is in charge of a couple hundred of parts, and we have to make sure that those parts are present in all the service centers. That is my job, basically. So as an intern, I was given like 300 parts to begin with, which is not a lot. You can manage that. But then my boss manages 1400 parts, and he went on leave. And then suddenly my manager's manager, he told me that, Nirmay, from tomorrow you have to manage all your parts and your manager's parts. So suddenly this inexperienced intern has to manage 1700 parts. So I got very scared in the beginning, very stressed. But then I was like, oh, this is a good opportunity for me to prove my worth to the team. Because I was told that as long as your need is not created in the team, they will not want you back for a full-time position, maybe. So this was a good opportunity for me to create my need. So I am in that situation right now. And the way I've decided to go about it is by basically not taking one day at a time. And I've started relying too much on to-do lists. I think they can work wonders for you. Just going to office every morning and having a clear list of all the things that you want to do by the end of the day, it gives you a lot of clarity of thought, and you can plan your day accordingly. That is one thing that I'm doing. And another thing is, I think just trying not to procrastinate. Like there's this one rule that I read, that if something ad hoc comes up, and if you can do it in less than 5 minutes, then you should just do it. Like replying to an email or replying to a chat, then you should just do it, because it will save more time by doing it then and there, instead of postponing it to sometime later. So yeah, not procrastinating and making to-do lists. Definitely, that's the way I'm trying to deal with this situation.
Yeah, that's great because also like your responsibilities like a material planning intern. What are these activities that actually you do? Like you said, those parts, right, of the cars and the repairing and everything. But what is like the groundwork that is needed for material planning intern to do?
Yeah, so basically, what my role involves is talking to the supplier. And so we outsource all these parts. Tesla only makes a few parts in house, which are not managed by material planners. Material planners manage all the parts that are outsourced. And I have to, so we have a whole MRP software which takes care of all the forecasts and how many items of a part are needed, and all that is all computer generated. The only time a material planner is required is when a supplier is supposed to ship those parts and they don't ship for some reason. That is when human intervention is needed, and that is where I come in. So my job is basically following up with the supplier to make sure that they're shipping. If they're not shipping, then trying to understand why they can't ship. Um, and in general, it also uh, involves me tracking where my parts are. Like when I plan, I only plan for one main warehouse, which is in California. But there are cars all over America. So if there's a person waiting for a particular part in New York, I can't tell them that we have the part in California. So it is my responsibility to divert that demand towards that service center in New York.
Yeah, that's great. So like as you said that this internship is also something that you have said that you have like a long term aspirations, like you have to do something in the domain of supply chains, right? So like how did you align this? Well, like yes, you would have like applied for many internships, but like if I'm doing this internship at a Tesla or any other company, how did your long term career aspiration aligned with this internship as you're an industrial engineer?
Hmm. So the honest answer to that question is I had no such plan of being a material planner. Like this is not my dream job or anything. I just took whatever internship I got in supply chain. But having said that, I think when you're at this stage in your career, like very nascent, very young, I just have 1 year of experience, barely qualified as experience. I am very open to taking any experience that comes my way because I think if I don't do that, then I'm just closing avenues for me to actually explore what I would want to do in a long run. So if I say that I don't want to do material planning because it's not my end goal, then I might never figure out what my end goal is because now that I've done material planning, I feel like, yeah, this is something I can do maybe for 10 years. I don't mind doing material planning, but after that, I might get bored. So I think it makes sense to not be very picky at this stage in your career. And as long as the role is not too off what you were imagining, you should take it. Because every role is going to teach you something, and who knows, maybe like for me, I work with a lot of like supply chain industrialization and engineers now at Tesla. So I have a very good understanding of what their role is. So when I try to apply for a full-time job, I will definitely try to apply for a SIE role. So it's not like when you do one kind of internship, that's the only kind of job you will get. You will build a network, and that will help you understand the roles that your company has to offer. And I think as an intern, that's a very good experience and exposure to have.
Yeah. So like as you said, you have been like right now you're not doing any courseworks at your
Yeah.
university, right? But like how do you manage, or like what are the strategies or techniques you have found particularly helpful in maintaining healthy work life balance? If not just academic, because as you said, you are not doing any course, but
Yeah.
like in general, what was your strategies or techniques, anything that you're maintaining such a nice way of work life balance?
Hmm. So I think one counterintuitive answer to that is when you feel that you don't have time for uh, the life aspect of work life, then you should especially make time for life. Like for me, having that work life balance means having 8 hours of my day dedicated to my job and the rest of the time dedicated to talking to friends and family, cooking, eating healthy food, all of that. So no matter how busy I feel I am, I will always talk to my parents and I will always talk to my friends, because I think that sense of connection with your family will drive you even uh, further to do better at your job. So I think the only way to enforce work-life balance is by drawing that line that just as a rule, do not open your work laptop on weekends, because no one expects that of you and you are not going to get any kind of appreciation for putting in that extra work. So don't bog down yourself with that unrealistic kind of pressure, and always make time for family and friends. Oh, and find one or two hobbies that make you happy. I mean, this is very like textbook. I know it's nothing new, but as simple as it sounds, it gets tough. Like when you are constantly thinking about your job, it becomes tough to think about that workout that you missed. It's like, let it be. I don't work out for 1 week. What will happen? But you should always make time for the things that oh are non-job that will make you better at your job, I think.
Yeah, that maintains your mental
Yeah,
peace
definitely.
along with your productivity.
Yeah.
So, like from your perspective, like what industries or like sectors within this industrial engineering itself do you believe are like promising during this economic uncertainty?
See, so I'm not an expert on this, and I think I know only as much as anyone would. But from what I'm hearing, supply chain is definitely like the booming industry right now, where there are no shortages of jobs. And another thing that I'm hearing is operations research, which is also what a lot of industrial engineers end up specializing in. So this is also one thing that I like about industrial engineering is that you can specialize in so many things. Like supply chain is just one which I have chosen. You can also specialize in like healthcare, operations research. So it's a very diverse degree, and you can decide which avenue you want to choose. Even like 1 year into the course, you can pick your courses in a way that shapes your future. But yeah, to answer your question, I would say supply chain and operations research.
Yeah, so I also have one more question, which is out of genuine curiosity. Like someone with a non-production or like non-industrial engineering background of undergraduation, might be in mechanical student or electrical. So, is there any scope, or is it feasible for them to navigate through this degree as something that is not really their domain?
Yeah,
So, is it possible for one to go into this masters of industrial engineering?
yeah, I think it's definitely possible because the name might be a little misleading, the industrial engineering, because it sounds like it is to do with industries and manufacturing and all that. But that's not always the case, because I have many peers who are like chemical engineers, electrical engineers, mechanical engineers are plenty who are doing industrial engineering. Oh, and I think that's also not a criterion for the university to pick you. They will definitely pick you even if you are a non-production or non-mechanical background, because they want that diversity in the cohort. And plus, it's not like I am studying subjects that are specific to production engineering now. I can always choose to study things that are very like general, like HR level general, or even like global management or something. I can even do management courses as an industrial engineering student. So yeah, there's no such restriction, and I think you should just boldly apply to this course, even if you're not from a production and manufacturing background, because it doesn't hold the university back from choosing you.
Right. That was great, to be honest, because I was very confused. Like, yes, industrial engineering, but can a computer student apply?
Yeah.
But can a yeah, so different branches can apply. So like apart from that, you have also did internship in India in Cummins Incorporation, right?
Yeah.
So like how did you go on about that? Like how did you secure that internship?
Oh, so I have to be honest about that, because so I did production engineering in COEP, where we have this fifth and eighth semester compulsory internship, full term internship. Oh, and because it was COVID, there were no recruiters who wanted to hire us. So we were just left for to find our own fate, and they were like, "You look for internships, and you find your own internship." So then like a baby, I went to my dad. My dad works at Cummins, and I told him that they are not giving us any internships. Please give me an internship. So then he was very kind, and he had me and my friend intern at Cummins. So that's how I got it. It was not my caliber that got me there, just my father's
No, but like
status.
it is a good thing, to be honest, because connections are very important. It may be your dad, but it may be other relatives too.
Yeah,
Because the fact that it was in COVID, it makes sense a lot
yeah,
because there was nothing, that it was just deserted.
yeah, yeah,
The whole academic profile, because it is very tough to even secure anything in that condition, right? We say that the recession right now is going bad, but it was also equally bad during COVID.
yeah. And you make an important point actually, because in India, it's kind of like taboo to ask favors from relatives and friends to give us jobs. Like, it's not considered the most ideal way to get a job or an internship. but it's highly encouraged here. And I think now even in India, like the referral culture is booming. Yeah, and you should network and you should make use of your connections.
Yeah, it is actually very double. And to be honest, why not make use of connections if you have one?
Yeah,
You have to take the leverage.
yeah.
So again, like you have did internship at India and now you are doing in USA. So like at the companies in India and USA. So like how different do you think the workplace or environment and workload are in this? Like how do you differ them?
Hmm. So, I would say the culture is very similar because Cummins is also an American company, and Tesla's culture is very India-like because, like, the expectations that they have from their employees, which is like you have to come to office every day, no work from home, only for like manager level, you can work from home once a week, and you have to be in office 9 to 5, you have to wear proper clothes, discipline. Like, I think this whole culture comes from a point of view of safety, because if something goes wrong on the line, on the assembly line, then there are
Yeah.
lives at stake. So you can't afford to have cultures as chill as like Apple and Google. From what I heard, I don't
Yeah.
know, but I've heard that they have like very chill cultures. They can work from home, which is not possible for manufacturing companies. So, because both of my internships were manufacturing companies, I find the culture to be very similar. The working hours, I would say, are a bit different. In Cummins, it was slightly chill for me because it was an unpaid internship, so no one really cared what I'm doing. So I just tried to learn more out of the internship than to actually add value to the company. But here, because they are paying me, they want me to get work done for them. So I there's a difference in the workload for sure, but culture-wise, I would say very comparable.
Just so you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so like also like what is like the one thing in your soft skills or like personal qualities like you had to enhance or improve as we are like transitioning from India like directly
Right.
to another country. So like what do you think was essential for your part as a master student? Because
Right.
there would be like demands for from you as a student as well.
Yeah. So soft skills wise, I would say it's always a good idea whether you are planning to move abroad or not to work on them, because at the end of the day, whenever you're a part of any organization, uh, you are always dealing with people. Even if it's like a software company or a manufacturing company, though, like, I talk to suppliers every day, so they're just people like you and me. And you, if you can't understand where they are coming from, if you can't empathize with them, can't figure out how to, what is the correct knack to talk to them, then you're going to suffer. Like, if you get angry or whatever, then it's not going to work. So soft skills come in handy at any point in life. And one shift that you asked that I had to make was, I think, to speak up more, because in India, like, I'm kind of shy. uh, I think I don't prefer to voice out my opinion unless I'm like absolutely sure about it. But that's not the case here, because you have to be vocal, you have to be in the picture all the time for them to notice you. So it's a good habit to, work on your confidence maybe, and just have that, just be bold enough to voice out your opinions, I guess. I don't know if that qualifies as a soft skill, but yeah, definitely a speaking skill that I would encourage
Yeah.
everyone to develop.
Attending this question, reflecting on your development journey right now, like as you said about soft skill, are there any like specific experiences that have significantly shaped your professional and personal growth simultaneously? Are there like any?
Yeah, I think there are such moments in my life where I think one thing I've realized is it matters very much the kind of people you choose to hang out with on a day to day basis, because they will end up affecting the way you think, the opinions you form, the kind of exposure you get. So I would say just uh, be blunt and go out there and make friends with the smartest and kindest people that you find, because that will take you places. So try
Yeah.
to be the dumbest person in the group in any like corporate setting. Be the
Yeah.
dumbest person in the group, because you will learn so much when you are hanging out with these geniuses. So that's a good strategy to follow, I think. Just befriending intelligent people, that will definitely help you a lot in life. And another thing is, yeah, was that all your question was? Can you repeat?
Yes, yes. Sure, you can. So no, I was just asking, like, reflecting on your journey, what significantly shaped your professional and personal growth?
Yeah, so this friends, the kind of friends I chose, definitely that's one. And another thing is, oh, yeah, like I talked about it in the beginning, the habit of being constantly busy. Like I have spent one whole year in COVID being very, very lazy, and I know how horrible it feels at the end of that year to not have achieved any progress, personal, professional, nothing. So I think that's when I made up my mind to always be busy, even if I feel like I'm overworked. That's fine. But it's always a good idea to have things to do on your plate, because without that you can't learn. At least in these growing years, like till you're 30,
Yeah.
I think it's a good strategy to have too many things to do.
Yeah, it's really great because it is actually good. As I have also done like extracurricular activities, it actually shapes you a lot, even
Yeah.
in your undergraduation years.
Yeah, correct. To add to your point, I would say that you should always uh, try to pursue one art form for sure. Because I've always been like artistically inclined. I like to at least follow one passion at a time, if not two. And I think that gives you a very fresh as perspective to any problem you're dealing with. Because I think because I'm a dancer or something, I don't know, I can understand people's expressions and feelings very easily as compared to an engineer. So I think you should always cater to your art.
Looking back at your undergraduate experiences and now that you are here at masters, like, are there any specific resources or like opportunities or experiences like you feel you wish you would have taken advantage of sooner?
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, I don't exactly have regrets, but I was never a part of any technical club in COEP. Like we had a lot of opportunities to be a part of that, like Satellite Club and Baha and all of those things. But I never felt drawn towards that because I was never like a core engineer kind of person. I was always more interested in like drama, dance, all of that. I did that most of that after college. Uh, Sometimes I feel like it would have helped me understand whether or not core is something I want to pursue if I would have been a part of some technical club. So maybe that I didn't explore enough. And another thing, yeah, no, I guess that's it. But yeah, you should try and be a part of one
Yeah.
kind of club in every aspect if you can, if you have
Yeah,
the
ma'am.
time.
Yes, true. It does wonders. So, like, what is your advice for like right now who are pursuing their undergraduation in any field? To be honest, they are engineers, but like undergraduates considering to pursuing advanced programs or exploring career paths in industrial engineering or related fields. What is like one advice that you would give?
And one advice. I would say that my father always tells me this, that it's always the best idea to get as much as education as you can. So if you're thinking whether or not to get that master's degree, just go and get it. Because even if it's going to teach you so much more than that subject. Like I think in the 6 months, yeah, that I've been away from home, I have learned so much more about life in general than I have about industrial engineering. So my advice is just take life as it comes, because it'll it'll teach you the most unexpected things, the most unexpected ways, and it will be so fun to just figuring out everything on your own and just developing your own ways to deal with tough situations. It will be a very fulfilling and enriching experience. And I would wish that on every 20 something year old, because I think we are still very impressionable, even if we are like adults. I think we can still gain a lot of knowledge and a lot of tricks in our hat about how we want to live life going ahead based on these couple of years that we decide to hustle. So definitely go get that master's degree, whether in India, whether outside of India, for sure get it. And another thing, I don't want to sound repetitive, but make amazing friends. Make friends that teach you kindness, and find, if you're going to live abroad, then find roommates that make home feel like home, because I had the best roommates in my first semester at Purdue. We used to like literally cook for each other and everything, and that means so much when you're away from home. So choosing the right people, and yeah, choosing a tough life, because it will teach you so much.
Yeah, like everyone should, once in their lifetime go abroad and actually do something, because I feel like it will take you out of your comfort zone and also make you learn many things
Yeah.
beyond just the master's program or anything.
Yeah,
So it was
definitely.
really nice.
Yes.
And another thing, like, would you like to give any another advice in general to any student about life, not just like program or anything?
About life. Yeah, I think I touched based upon this during our conversation, but I want to emphasize this again, because the more I uh, talk to people, the more I realize this, that your EQ will take you places, and your IQ means nothing if you do not have an EQ. And it's not like you're either born with it or not. You can definitely work on your EQ. You have to you have to be a people's person, and you have to understand where the other person is coming from, even if it's a like professional setting. I feel like uh, EQ is what will set you apart. Like, there are so many intelligent people in this world, but people who have the ability to understand that not all people have the same speed of learning, not the same level of understanding. Only those are the people who can become effective managers and good leaders. So I think, as as engineers, we all aspire to be a manager at some point, and the only way to make that happen is by being very empathetic and very understanding of people's feelings, which sounds very counterintuitive in a money driven corporate world. Like, you would think that you should focus more on your hard skills like coding and Excel and whatever, which is true. You should always have those skills, because that is, without that, no one is going to hire you. But that, a lot of people have. What can set you apart is your EQ. And I will definitely continue to work on my EQ.
Yeah, that's such a great answer, because it's I've never seen like people actually touch upon these topics a lot. They are more like, yes, you should, develop your coding skills and everything. But it is important, to be honest, to
Yeah,
talk
I
about
feel so
EQ.
too.
And yeah, like thank you so much, Mrinmay.
Oh,
It was very nice to talk to you. Like it was really such a genuine interview. It did not feel like it was okay, it is just a podcast or
yeah.
something. No, it was really nice. But like you, thank you for in general like sharing your incredible journey and insights for us today. It's been truly inspiring.
Thank you. Even I had a great time. I also felt like I was talking to a friend. So this was a fun experience for me, and it was very flattering that people want to know about my journey. So thank you for making me feel like that.
Thank you for joining us on this enlightening journey with Mrinmay. We hope you have gained valuable insights and perspectives from today's conversation. Remember to subscribe for more thought provoking episodes, and until next time, stay curious and keep pushing beyond your limits.